You know, a lot of people don't know that we're sisters. You know, that's something I never talked about in the beginning because I didn't want it to be a crutch. You know, I didn't want people to be like, oh, you know, that's her sister. I didn't want that to be my accolade of mine. But now that, you know, I've solidified my spot, then I go ahead and talk about it. But a lot of people don't know it, though.
Nia Long and Samurai have got to be the most distant sisters in Hollywood. What do you mean they have nothing to do with each other? At first, people assumed they hid the connection so Samurai could build her own name in the industry without being tagged as Nia's sister. But now both of them have their own thing going, established careers, real recognition, and they still don't mess with each other. And Samurai has been pretty clear that this is a decision she's standing by, because the Nia she knows behind the scenes isn't someone she wants in her life. So, what actually happened between them? Nia and Samurai are both notoriously private people. And for years, most fans had absolutely no idea they were even related to one another. The first time the public heard confirmation came from an interview Samurai did with Divine Martino, where she explained she'd deliberately never talked about the relationship because she wanted to build her own career as a comedian, entirely independent of being known as Nia's sister. That reasoning tracked completely. Nia had already established herself first, with real notoriety in Black Hollywood specifically. So if Samurai had gone around introducing herself as Nia Long's sister, from the jump, it would have made carving out her own separate identity a lot harder to accomplish. Nia eventually acknowledged the relationship herself, posting a side-by-side photo of the two of them on Instagram captioned, "The funny one in the family." Samurai liked the post, and then deleted her like a few hours later with no explanation given publicly. It read almost like Nia wanted to give her sister a genuine shout-out, but got uncomfortable once it started gaining real attention online, and quietly pulled back from the moment. Then, in 2020, when their father, Dor Long, passed away, Nia shared a heartfelt tribute describing him as a master of words, an educator, a mentor, and a hero in his community, and she gave a direct nod to her sister within it, writing that, "My sister Lori, aka comedian Samurai, and Jamila and I will miss him dearly." Since that post, it's been complete radio silence between the two of them publicly. As biological as the connection genuinely is, they simply don't relate to each other as sisters in any traditional sense. Samurai has said as much herself, plainly stating in interviews that they share a father but aren't really sisters in the way most people naturally assume, that they speak occasionally, but she's certainly not going to be babysitting Nia's kids anytime soon. To understand why the relationship never really had a chance to form, you have to go back to how their family actually came together in the first place. Their father had Samurai first, in 1966, but his relationship with her mother didn't survive long after she was born. 4 years later, he was in a relationship with a different woman, Nia's mother, and Nia was born from that relationship. But that relationship also ended when Nia was just 2 years old. After the split, Nia's mother packed up and left New Jersey, where the family had been based, moving first to Iowa and eventually to LA in search of a fresh start. That meant Nia grew up essentially without a father figure in her daily life, while Samurai, staying closer geographically, was able to maintain at least some relationship with him growing up throughout her childhood. Nia has spoken openly about the resentment that came with that imbalance, saying she spent years disappointed and angry, wishing for the basic father-daughter experience, bedtime stories, him just being present, that Samurai had access to, and she simply didn't. And since the two of them never actually lived together or interacted much as kids, especially in an era well before the internet or social media made staying connected across distance easier, there was never really a foundation for closeness to begin with. As adults, Samurai has said they did genuinely try to reconnect on a few separate occasions. A handful of phone calls here and there, a couple of in-person meetups over the years, but the vibe was consistently off whenever they were actually together in the same room. By that point in their lives, Nia was already the far bigger star with real industry standing, while Samurai was still relatively early in building her own career, and that imbalance reportedly bled directly into how Nia approached the relationship between them going forward. That imbalance connects to something that's followed Nia for years professionally. A reputation, fair or not, for being difficult to work with on set. Reports have circulated about her holding up production on The Best Man holiday for roughly an hour over a wardrobe disagreement, reportedly insisting her character wear white instead of black for a funeral scene, until the production eventually gave in to her request. There's also been well-documented tension with Taraji P. Henson on the set of Empire, where Nia was reportedly frequently late and pushed for her guest role to be expanded into something competing directly with Taraji's lead character Cookie, a move that didn't sit well with anyone involved in the production. She's also been described as particular to the point of friction over hair and styling specifically, repeatedly asking for redos until she felt satisfied with the final look. Nia herself hasn't really denied the underlying attitude behind any of this. She's framed it instead as simply knowing exactly what she wants for her own image, saying plainly in her own words that she knows her light, her makeup, her hair, and that people shouldn't expect to talk her out of that unless they can actually show her something better. If that reads as difficult to some people watching from the outside, she's made clear publicly that she's completely fine with that label being attached to her. The problem, according to what circulated publicly, is that this exact same dynamic showed up when Nia interacted with Samurai directly, one-on-one. Nia reportedly expected a certain level of deference from her sister, simply because she was the bigger, more established name in the industry, while Samurai walked into their adult relationship expecting something closer to equal footing between two grown women genuinely getting to know each other for the first time in their lives. Samurai had already heard the rumors about her sister's reputation beforehand from people in the industry, but was reportedly willing to give her the benefit of the doubt until she experienced that dynamic firsthand herself. Once she realized she wasn't going to get genuine respect within that relationship, she set boundaries again and simply left it there, without any further public drama or confrontation. It's hard to blame her for that choice, choosing her own peace over investing real energy into a relationship that never really had a solid foundation to begin with, and wasn't especially likely to develop into something healthier just because the two of them happened to share a last name and a father. Nia, for her part, doesn't seem particularly interested in talking about her sister much either, and appears completely at peace with not having a relationship at all, as long as neither of them turns the estrangement into a public rivalry the way some other famous sisters in Hollywood have done over the years. People who've actually met Samurai in person describe her as warm, funny, and genuinely down-to-earth, which only reinforces that this isn't really a story about either of them being a villain. It's a relationship that was never given a real chance to form naturally in childhood, and by the time they were both adults capable of building it themselves, the emotional gap had already calcified into something neither of them felt particularly compelled to fix. At the end of the day, not every set of siblings ends up close, and that's genuinely okay, even when the two people involved happen to be famous. Some people grow up in completely separate households, raised around completely separate versions of the same parent, and just don't end up with much in common once they're both fully grown adults. There's no dramatic villain in this particular story, no explosive falling out caught on camera, just two women who built entirely separate lives, entirely separate careers, and ultimately decided that was more than enough for both of them. What do you guys think about all this? Do you think they'll ever come to some kind of resolution down the line, or is this simply how it's always going to be between them? Sound off in the comments, and make sure to like and subscribe.